Miracles begin the moment you speak this prayer. There are moments in life when heaven seems silent, the path is shadowed, and the soul trembles under burdens too heavy for human strength. But let it be known, the Almighty is not far, nor is his arm shortened that it cannot save. There is a divine mystery written into the heart of prayer, a holy transaction where earth touches eternity, and the impossible bows before the will of God. The moment a heart cries out in faith, sincerely and fervently, the gates of heaven are stirred, the ear of God bends low, and the power of the Most High begins to move. Not a whisper escapes the lips of the righteous without being recorded in the throne room. This is not the prayer of ritual nor of routine, but the prayer born from holy desperation and childlike trust, the prayer that ushers in miracles. Speak it in faith, and heaven will answer with fire. The prayer that pierces heaven's gate. There exists a kind of prayer, adorned by poetic flourish and untrained by the tongue of the learned, that yet reaches the ears of the Almighty like thunder upon the gates of heaven. It is not clothed in religious polish, nor repeated by rote, but it comes from the desperate soul like a cry in the night, breaking through every cloud of doubt and storm of despair. It is not the length of prayer that moves the throne. No, even the briefest sigh, if breathed with faith, can shake celestial places. Many have bowed heads and folded hands, but their lips were cold and their hearts distracted, their prayers never leaving the room in which they were uttered. But there is a prayer that rises with weight, lifted not by eloquence but by earnestness, not by rhythm but by righteousness, not by position but by passion. When such a prayer is spoken from trembling lips that believe in the God who sees in secret, it carries the fragrance of brokenness and the fire of holy boldness. The angels do not ignore such utterances. The Spirit bears them upward like incense, and the Father leans forward with divine attention. This is the prayer that does not knock politely, but pounds upon the mercy gate until it swings wide. Consider the blind beggar by the roadside who cried, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Though rebuked by the crowd, he cried all the louder, and heaven answered. His words were simple, his theology was likely incomplete, but his desperation was pure, and his faith was fixed. That is the secret of the prayer that pierces. It is born not of religious habit, but of holy hunger. Lord does not respond to formulas, but to faith. A single sentence whispered in surrender can bring heaven's armies to attention. A groan from a crushed spirit can provoke divine intervention. You may not feel holy or strong or worthy, but the God of Abraham never required such credentials. He looks for the contrite heart, the yielded voice, the soul that has nowhere else to go. And though the world may mock and the devil may accuse, the cry of the righteous reaches higher than the condemnation of hell. The prayer that pierces is like an arrow shot from the furnace of suffering, guided by the hand of faith and dipped in the oil of the Spirit. It does not miss its mark. It finds the throne of grace where the great intercessor sits, the one who ever lives to make intercession for his people. And there at the mercy seat that trembling prayer is not only heard, it is answered, not always in the way the petitioner imagines, but always in the way of divine wisdom. You see, the God who answers does not merely fix situations. He transforms hearts, and sometimes the miracle is not in the changing of circumstances, but in the lifting of the soul above the storm. But make no mistake, real prayer is never in vain. Speak it in faith, even if your voice trembles. Whisper it in the night, even if your heart is heavy. Declare it with tears, even if hope feels distant. For the moment such a prayer is spoken, pure, raw heaven, bound, things begin to move in the realm unseen. Chains begin to rattle, darkness begins to break, angels are dispatched, and though you may not yet see the answer with mortal eyes, be assured, the miracle has already begun, not tomorrow, not next week. The moment you speak such a prayer in faith, heaven answers. The prayer that pierces heaven is not about saying the right things, but about believing in the right one. The blood-stained mercy seat has not lost its power, and the ears of the Lord have not grown dull. He hears, he knows, and he moves. So let the weary heart pray again. Let the doubting soul lift its voice. Let the warrior fall to his knees and cry out, for there is a prayer that turns the tide, a petition that calls down rain on barren land, a holy cry that causes even the mountains to tremble. This is the prayer that pierces heaven's gate, and the miracle begins not when the answer arrives, but the very moment you speak it. Heaven's response to earth's cry. There is a divine swiftness in heaven that human clocks cannot measure. For when a believing heart cries out from earth in true faith, the response from God is neither indifferent nor delayed. It is immediate, invisible perhaps to the natural eye, but immediate in the courts of the Almighty. The child of God must understand this truth. The distance between your cry and God's answer is not bridged by time, but by trust. The very instant a desperate soul dares to lift its voice toward the throne of grace, the King of Heaven leans in with loving attentiveness, his heart moved with compassion, his hand prepared for action. For what earthly father would ignore the weeping voice of his child, and what righteous king would turn his back on a loyal servant's plea? How much more, then, shall the perfect Father of lights attend to the cries of those who call upon him in spirit and truth? The delay we so often perceive is not a delay of God's heart, but a veil over our own understanding, for while we wait in silence, heaven is already busy in motion. The great comfort of the faithful is not that we feel God at work, but that we know he is at work, because his word has declared it so. And if the word has said that the prayer of the righteous avails much, then it must avail even when clouds obscure the sunrise. Look to Daniel, whose prayer was heard the moment he set his heart to seek God. Yet the answer wrestled in heavens for 21 days, for unseen forces had drawn the battlefield into the air. And was God late? Nay, he had already dispatched the answer, but the heavens roared with conflict before the reply touched earth. So it is with the soul who prays with a heart ablaze with holy confidence. Answer is not formed after the prayer. It was waiting in the wisdom of God, destined to meet the believer at the appointed time. Heaven's response is never passive. When a prayer rises, angels descend. When faith speaks, God listens, and where God listens, he moves. Not as a man who must be persuaded, but as a father who delights to be asked. The delay is never denial, and the silence is never neglect. It is the patience of heaven working through the perfect will of a sovereign God. And what a comfort it is to know that while we are yet speaking, he has already heard. While tears fall upon our pillow, the potter is shaping the vessel. While knees bend in weakness, the armies of heaven are being sent to battle. No cry of the humble ever goes unrecorded. Not a single syllable falls to the ground. The heavens may seem brass, the earth unyielding, but the prayer that touches God's heart is already working its purpose, for he who sits above the circle of the earth does not sleep nor slumber. Let the soul therefore take courage, even if the mountain remains unmoved, even if the fig tree does not blossom, even if the answer seems delayed. For God is never late, and his answers are never second best. If the answer tarries, it is only because he is weaving it into a greater tapestry than the one you had imagined. He responds not merely to our need, but to his purpose, not merely to our cries, but to his glory. And when he comes suddenly. The heavens may be still for a season, but when God speaks, the earth shakes. When his hand moves, the impossible bows. What seemed forgotten is remembered. What seemed denied is delivered. What seemed broken is rebuilt in ways we could not have asked or imagined. Therefore, let the intercessor press on, not in doubt, but in holy expectation. For though the ears of men may be deaf to your pain, the ears of God are ever open. Though the world may mock your petitions as wasted breath, the angels record them with reverence and awe. The altar of incense is still burning, and every prayer that rises in faith is a sweet aroma before the throne. The cry from earth has reached heaven before you have finished speaking it, and the answer from heaven is already descending even before you understand the fullness of your request. Be still then, and know that he is God. Let the storm rage, let the silence endure, let the answer wait. God is at work. His response is not always seen in the breaking of chains, but sometimes in the strengthening of the soul to endure them. Sometimes the miracle is not that the sea is calmed, but that the sailor learns to walk on water in the midst of the storm. But this we know: heaven never ignores the cry of the faithful. The throne of grace was built for such cries. The blood of the Lamb pleads louder than any doubt, and the Spirit groans with us when our words fail. So speak, even if your heart is weary. Pray, even if your hands hang low. The moment you lift your voice, great King hears, the angels prepare, and eternity bends toward you in loving response. You are not alone, you are not unheard. Heaven's response is not on its way, it is already begun. The power is not in the words, but in the blood. Let no man be deceived into thinking that the power of prayer lies in the polish of his language, the rhythm of his repetition, or the elegance of his utterance, for the throne of God is not moved by eloquence but by atonement, by the blood that speaks better things than Abel. The strength of prayer does not reside in syllables or sentences, but in the sacred name by which we approach the Father, the name that was forged in suffering, sealed in sacrifice, and crowned in resurrection. For who among mortals dares to approach the Holy One apart from the blood? Shall a sinner walk into the blazing presence of righteousness by charm or tone? No, it is only through the crimson veil of Calvary that the veil of the temple was torn, and access to the Almighty granted. This is why we pray not in our own name, nor in the name of saints or prophets, but in the name of Him who bore the cross, drank the cup, and cried, "It is finished." Our prayers, however weak, find power when they are dipped in that sacred blood, when they ride upon the merit of the spotless Lamb. A groan in the blood is mightier than 1,000 psalms without it. A whisper in Christ's name ascends higher than a thunderous chant in the pride of flesh. The blood is the bridge that spans the chasm between a holy God and a sinful man. It is the fountain in which our words are washed, the robe in which our petitions are clothed, the seal by which our cries are received in heaven. Without the blood, prayer is noise. With the blood, it becomes divine petition, welcomed and answered. The angels do not respond to volume, but to value, and the blood gives infinite worth to the simplest cry of a broken heart. You may stammer, you may stumble, your grammar may falter, but if you come in the name of Jesus, in the confidence of His cross, in the assurance of His intercession, then your prayer carries the very weight of heaven's authority. Consider this: if a king's son places his signature on a letter, even a slave's request gains royal attention. So it is with us. Our petitions bear the mark of the Son of God, and therefore they do not return void. The power does not lie in the length of your prayer, nor the posture of your body, nor the place you speak it from, but in the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world. This is why demons tremble when you speak in His name. This is why sickness retreats, chains break, and hearts melt. Because His blood speaks on your behalf, it silences the accuser, covers the unworthy, and demands the mercy of heaven. The enemy may remind you of your weakness, your sin, your failure, but remind him of the blood. Say to your fear, I come not in my strength, but in His righteousness. Say to your doubts, I pray not as a beggar, but as a child covered in the blood of my Redeemer. For the blood secures not only access but favor. It is not just that we may approach, but that we are welcomed. The Father delights in the prayers of His children who come by way of the cross, not because we are worthy, but because His Son is worthy and we are hidden in Him. The power, then, is not in how loud we cry or how long we persist, but in how fully we trust in the finished work of Christ. Do not trust your emotions. They rise and fall like waves upon the sea. Do not trust your experience. It is a fading vapor. Trust the blood. It has not lost its power. It was sufficient then, it is sufficient now, and it will be sufficient forevermore. Let this embolden you, dear soul. Pray boldly, not because you are holy, but because the Holy One has gone before you. Pray expectantly, not because your words are mighty, but because the Blood is almighty. Pray persistently, not to convince a reluctant God, but to stand in the confidence that his ear is already bent toward the blood marked petition. If you knew the power in that name, you would not hesitate. If you grasped the weight of that blood, you would not delay. Let this truth settle in your spirit. Every prayer you speak in faith through the blood of Christ is backed by the full weight of heaven. The treasury of grace is opened by the key of the cross. The courtroom of justice yields to the voice of mercy when the advocate presents your case, not with argument, but with wounds. So lift your voice, not as a wanderer hoping for luck, but as an heir of covenant, a child of promise, a soul covered in crimson. This is why the dying thief found paradise in a sentence. This is why the publican was justified with just 7 words. This is why your prayer today can change everything, not because of you, but because of him. The altar is still soaked in blood, the veil is still torn, the throne is still open, the intercessor is still pleading, the Spirit is still groaning, and the blood it still speaks. So let the sinner draw near, let the broken cry out, let the weary speak, for the power was never in your mouth, but in the mercy that meets it, and that mercy flows from the fountain filled with blood. The moment you pray through the blood, you pray with heaven's authority, heaven's covering, and heaven's power. And that, beloved, is where the miracle begins. The greatest miracle is the answer you didn't expect. We often look for God's miracles in the thunder, in the fire, in the parting of seas and the shaking of prison walls, expecting him to demonstrate his glory in ways that are loud, visible, and undeniable. But the greatest miracle is often clothed in silence, wrapped in waiting, hidden in the answer we did not ask for but desperately needed. The soul cries for deliverance, and yet God sends endurance. The heart pleads for escape, and instead he gives peace within the storm. Oh, the mystery of divine wisdom, that he would answer prayers not according to the weakness of our asking, but according to the depth of his eternal purpose. It is a mercy greater than sight, that the Lord would not always give us what we want, but what draws us nearer to him. We speak with trembling lips, asking for doors to open, mountains to move, burdens to be lifted, but he who sees the end from the beginning knows that the deeper miracle is not in changing our situation, but in changing us. He hears our cries for the removal of the thorn, yet he answers with, "My grace is sufficient." What man sees as unanswered prayer, heaven often records as highest mercy. For who can know what dangers were averted, what pride was broken, what character was formed in the furnace of divine delay? Consider the Christ in Gethsemane, who cried with blood and agony, "If it be possible, let this cup pass from me." And yet the Father did not take away the cup, but gave him strength to drink it. And through that obedience came the redemption of the world. Is that not the miracle above all, that God can take a bitter cup and make it the wine of salvation, that he can take the rugged cross and make it the door of glory? Likewise, when you pray and heaven does not answer in the way you imagined, do not think God has failed you. Rather, know that he is working in deeper ways, ways that refine the soul, purge the heart, and make the petitioner into the image of his Son. It is the unanswered prayers that often draw us into chambers of deeper trust. It is in the silence that we learn to cling, not to outcomes, but to the God of outcomes. The greatest miracle is not always the cancer healed, but the soul made fearless in its shadow. Not always the debt cancelled, but the contentment born in lack. Not always the conflict resolved, but the heart kept tender in the midst of it. Oh yes, we serve a God who parts seas and breaks chains, but we also serve a God who walks with us through the fire and is not ashamed to sit beside us in the ashes. Let no man despise the unexpected answer, for it may contain the gold of heaven wrapped in the dust of earth. Often we ask for healing, but God sends a revelation of himself that outshines any physical restoration. We seek a way out, but he becomes the way within. We beg for miracles in the flesh, but he grants us resurrection in the spirit. Think it not strange, then, when the answer you sought does not arrive, but something deeper settles upon your soul, a peace that passes understanding, a joy that defies logic, a strength that is made perfect in weakness. These are not lesser miracles, these are higher ones. The soul that has learned to say, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him," has experienced a miracle greater than sight, a faith that holds when nothing else remains. Do you not know that many who received the physical miracles still perished, but those who received the inward one gained eternal treasure? Lazarus was raised, but he died again. Leper was cleansed, but his body returned to dust. But the thief on the cross who simply cried, "Remember me," received paradise, though no chains were broken, no wounds were healed, no rescue was seen. That, beloved, is the miracle that turns death into a doorway and suffering into sanctification. So if you have prayed and the answer has come differently, if the storm did not cease but your soul was steady, rejoice, for you have touched something eternal. The miracle you didn't expect is often the one your soul longed for without knowing. It is the deeper surgery of grace, the hidden hand of God conforming you to glory. Yes, cry out for healing, for deliverance, for breakthrough. He delights in the prayers of his people. But when the answer comes as fire instead of water, as silence instead of thunder, as a cross instead of a crown, bow your heart and bless his name. For he gives not as man gives, but as a Father who loves too deeply to give us what would ruin us. The true miracle is that he answers at all, and that in every answer, even the unexpected one, he is working for our good. The path may not look like blessing, but if it brings you nearer to his heart, it is a blessing beyond measure. So trust him, not merely with what you desire, but with how he chooses to respond. For the prayer you spoke has not fallen to the ground. The cry you raised has not vanished into the wind. It has touched the throne, and the answer has been fashioned not by your wish, but by his wisdom, and that answer, dear soul, even if wrapped in sorrow or mystery, is a miracle indeed. The moment you spoke the prayer, heaven heard it, and the answer that came, though not what you expected, is exactly what grace intended. Speak the prayer that moves the hand of God. There is a kind of prayer that does more than fill the air, it moves the very hand of God. Not because of the strength of the man who prays, but because of the might of the God who listens. This prayer is not born of casual desire, nor is it tossed into the heavens like a wish upon the wind. No, it is forged in inner sanctuary of a soul desperate for divine intervention. A prayer groaned from the depths, soaked in tears, and lifted with trembling yet tenacious faith. It is not a mere formality, but of force. It is not ritual, but holy resolve. And when such a prayer is spoken, when the heart is bent low, faith looks high. Heaven cannot stay still. The earth may remain unchanged to the natural eye, but in the unseen realm armies march, strongholds shake, and the sovereign hand of God is stirred to action. The prayer that moves his hand is not polished by religion, but pressed by hunger. It is the prayer of Hannah, who poured out her soul until no words remained. It is the cry of Elijah, who knelt on Mount Carmel with his face between his knees, calling for fire from heaven. It is the cry of the Syrophoenician woman, who would not be denied even when silence and seeming rejection met her. This kind of prayer is not content with repetition. It is marked by importunity, a holy persistence that refuses to let go until the blessing comes. It is what Jacob uttered when he wrestled with the angel and declared, "I will not let thee go, except thou bless me." Such a cry does not offend God. It honors him, for it confesses that he alone is the answer, that nothing else will do, that no earthly hand can provide what only heaven can supply. This is the prayer that prevails, not because it changes God's mind, but because it aligns our soul with his will. It is a surrender, yes, but it is also a battle cry, a declaration that the soul will contend for the promise, for the outpouring, for the deliverance that only God can give. And when such a prayer is spoken, it becomes a catalyst for divine movement. Mountains bow before it, demons tremble at it, angels are dispatched in response to it, and the hand that spun the stars, the hand that calmed the sea, the hand that was pierced for sinners, that hand moves, not out of reluctance, but in response to faith that pleases him. For he has said, "Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things, which thou knowest not." Oh, what mighty things lie just on the other side of our silence, what breakthroughs wait for the prayer yet unspoken. The sick are waiting for healing prayers to be released. The lost are waiting for intercession to break the chains of blindness. Entire cities await cry of the righteous, and heaven stands ready, not aloof but alert, waiting for the kind of prayer that costs something, that stretches the soul, that dares to believe the promises of God are still alive and active today. Beloved, speak that prayer, not the safe one, not the shallow one, but the one your heart is afraid to utter because it seems too bold. Pray like Esther before the king, knowing your life depends on it. Pray like Moses standing in the breach, willing to be erased if it meant mercy for the people. Pray like the early church, who cried out together and saw prison doors open, chains fall off and boldness multiplied. There is no formula for such prayer. It is not found in technique, but in total surrender. It may be a sentence or a sob. It may come in the midnight hour or as the sun rises, but it will be marked by one unmistakable trait: faith. Not faith in self, not faith in outcomes, but faith in God. Faith that says, even now, Lord. Faith that declares, nevertheless, thy will be done. Faith that knows he hears, even if the answer tarries. And when you pray this way, the hand of God moves. Not always in the way you imagined, but always in the way that is best. He may not still the storm, but he may still you. He may not open the door you desired, but he may open one no man can shut. He may not change the world around you, but he will surely change the world within you. And that, dear soul, is the beginning of every true miracle. So speak the prayer. Do not delay. Let it rise unfiltered, unhindered, unashamed. Let it ascend like incense, perfumed with faith and soaked in surrender. For the moment you do, the hand of God will begin to move, not because of who you are, but because of who He is, not because your words are worthy, but because His mercy endures forever. The arm of the Lord is not shortened, His ear is not heavy. He is still the God who answers by fire, who parts waters, who feeds thousands with crumbs, who raises the dead and comforts the broken. He waits to be wanted. He longs to respond. The heavens are not brass to those who pray with clean hands and humble hearts. Speak the prayer and let it shake you first. Let it empty you. Let it stretch your faith. Let it stir your hunger. For when you do, the heavens will answer not with mere whispers, but with wonders. And the same hand that shaped the world will reach down to shape your story in ways that no man could ever orchestrate. Speak the prayer that moves the hand of God, and watch as eternity bends to touch the moment.